The accusation began before the mud on Isaiah Mercer's uniform had time to dry. He stood inside the marble entrance hall of Belgrave Manor with rainwater dripping from his sleeves, a torn security jacket hanging from one shoulder, and a thin line of blood running from his temple. In his arms, wrapped in his coat, was 6-year-old Sophie Belgrave. The child was unconscious but breathing. Behind him, the front doors stood open to a violent autumn storm. Wind scattered leaves across the polished floor. Rain struck the tall windows, and somewhere beyond the mansion, police sirens were approaching through the darkness. For 1 second, no one moved. Then Sophie's mother screamed. Vivian Belgrave rushed down the staircase, her pale evening gown lifting around her ankles. She tore the child from Isaiah's arms and dropped to her knees. "Sophie, Sophie, wake up!" The girl's wet blonde hair clung to her face. Her small hands were scraped, and one shoe was missing. She made a weak sound when Vivian touched her cheek. "She needs a doctor," Isaiah said. "She was exposed to the cold and she may have hit her head." Vivian looked up at him. Her fear transformed into rage so quickly that Isaiah almost stepped back. "What did you do to her?" The question silenced the entire hall. Family members, dinner guests, household employees, and security officers stared at Isaiah as though the answer had already been decided. "I found her near the old pumping station," he said. "You were supposed to guard the east gate. I left the gate when I realized she was missing." Vivian pulled Sophie closer. "You took her." "No. You disappeared at the same time she did. I went looking for her." Vivian's husband, Grant Belgrave, descended the staircase more slowly. At 43, he was the eldest son of billionaire industrialist Conrad Belgrave and the expected future chairman of Belgrave Meridian Holdings. His tailored dinner jacket remained perfectly buttoned, but his face had lost all color. He looked at his daughter, then at Isaiah. "Put your hands where I can see them." Isaiah stared at him. "I carried your daughter through a flooded ravine." "Put your hands up." Isaiah slowly raised them. The torn jacket slipped farther from his shoulder, revealing scratches along his forearm. Security Chief Roland Keswick entered through the side corridor with 3 guards. "Restrain him," Grant ordered. One of the guards hesitated. "Mr. Belgrave, he appears injured." "He was alone with my daughter." Isaiah looked directly at Roland. "You know where I found her." Roland's expression remained unreadable. "You abandoned your post without authorization. A child was missing. You did not report your location. My radio stopped working after I fell into the ravine." Vivian stood with Sophie in her arms. "You expect us to believe that?" Isaiah pointed toward the muddy water still dripping from his clothes. "I expect you to call an ambulance." The family doctor who had been attending the dinner hurried forward and examined Sophie. Her pulse was weak but steady. He instructed staff to bring blankets and oxygen. Grant never took his eyes off Isaiah. "Search him." The guards emptied Isaiah's pockets onto a console table, a flashlight, a broken radio, a folding utility knife, a security key card, a pink ribbon. Vivian froze. The ribbon belonged to Sophie. She had worn it in her hair during dinner. Grant picked it up. "Where did you get this?" "It was caught on the fence near the service road." "You kept it?" "I used it to track the direction she went." "You expect me to believe a ribbon led you through the woods?" "It told me where she crossed the fence." Roland took the ribbon from Grant and placed it inside an evidence bag. Isaiah looked at him. "You're treating me like a suspect." Roland's response was cold. "You are the last employee confirmed near the East grounds before the child disappeared. I was stationed there. And now you have her ribbon." "I found her." Grant stepped closer. "Where?" "At the abandoned pumping station beside the river. That area has been locked for years. The lower fence was cut." "By whom?" "I don't know." Vivian's younger brother, Nicholas Vale, appeared at the top of the staircase. He was 34, charming in public and careless in private, with expensive habits financed by the Belgrave family. He had been entertaining Sophie earlier that evening, promising to show her the estate's old glass greenhouse after dinner. Now his face carried the expression of a frightened uncle. "You're lying," Nicholas said. Isaiah looked toward him. Nicholas continued down the stairs. "I saw you watching Sophie in the garden this afternoon. I watch everyone who enters restricted areas. That is my job. You asked one of the maids about her schedule. She was wandering near the service road without an adult." Nicholas reached the bottom step. "You were planning this." Isaiah's jaw tightened. "Be careful." "Is that a threat?" "It is advice." Grant stepped between them. "Enough. The police can decide what happened." When officers arrived, Sophie was already being transported to St. Marin Children's Hospital. Isaiah asked to accompany them so he could explain where she had been found and how long she had been exposed. Grant refused. The police placed Isaiah in handcuffs instead. He was escorted from Belgrave Manor through the same doors he had entered carrying the missing child. Photographers were already waiting outside the gates. No one knew who had called them. By sunrise, the story had spread across every local news station. Black security guard questioned after billionaire's granddaughter found injured. The reports did not say Isaiah had rescued her. They said he had been discovered carrying her. They mentioned that the ribbon from her hair had been found in his pocket. They repeated that he had abandoned his assigned gate and failed to communicate with the security office for nearly 40 minutes. A former employee told reporters that Isaiah was quiet and kept to himself. Another said he had recently asked for a raise. Grant Belgrave issued a short statement asking the public to respect the family's privacy. Roland Keswick suspended Isaiah immediately. The police questioned him for 11 hours. Detective Lena Arbor sat across from him inside a gray interview room, studying his wet clothes sealed inside evidence bags. "Start from the moment you last saw Sophie," she said. Isaiah rubbed the marks left by the handcuffs. At approximately 7:20, she came outside through the East Terrace doors. "Alone?" "Yes." "What did you say to her?" "I told her she needed an adult." "What did she say?" "She said Uncle Nick was coming." "Nicholas Vale?" "Yes." "Did he arrive?" "Not while I was watching." "Then what happened?" "A delivery van approached the east gate. Its authorization code was valid, but the driver's name did not match the scheduled florist." "What company?" "Arden Floral Logistics." "Why was a florist arriving after 7? "It was listed as a late delivery for tomorrow's foundation event." "Did you let it in?" "No, I asked the driver to wait while I called the main security office." "What happened to Sophie?" "She walked back toward the terrace." "Did you see her enter the house?" "No, the van blocked part of my view." Lena wrote something down. "What did the driver do?" "He became nervous and reversed away from the gate before I received confirmation." "License plate?" "Partially obscured by mud. I recorded the first 4 characters." "Where?" "Security log." The detective looked at another file. "Roland Keswick says no entry appears in your log." Isaiah stared at her. "I entered it digitally at 7:26. "It is not there." "Then someone deleted it." "Who had access?" "Roland and the system administrators." "Are you accusing your supervisor?" "I am telling you the entry existed." Lena leaned back. "Continue." "At 7:34, the house reported Sophie missing. Roland ordered all guards to remain at their posts while household staff searched inside." "You disobeyed?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because I had seen her outside." "Did you tell Roland?" 3 times. "What did he say?" "He said Grant Belgrave did not want the estate gates left unsecured." "So you abandoned the gate?" "I locked it manually and followed the route Sophie had taken." "Why not wait for police?" "Because there was a storm approaching and a 6-year-old child was somewhere outside." "Where did you find the ribbon?" "On the lower wire of the service fence." "And after that?" "Footprints led toward the greenhouse path. One set was small, another belonged to an adult." "You followed them?" until the rain washed them out. Why didn't you call for assistance? I did. My radio transmitted twice. No one answered. Roland says he received no calls. Isaiah looked at her steadily. My radio records transmission attempts. We are examining it. The second attempt was near the ravine. I heard Sophie crying. What did you see? She was inside the old pumping station. The lower door was open. Was anyone with her? Not when I reached her. Was she locked inside? The door had closed behind her. The interior handle was missing. How did you enter? Through a broken window. The scratches on Isaiah's arm supported that part of his story. She was sitting near the drainage channel, he continued. Water was entering from the river. I tried to take her back through the window, but part of the wall collapsed. We used the maintenance tunnel. You knew about the tunnel. I worked as state security for 4 years. We inspect emergency routes. Roland says that tunnel has been sealed for a decade. Then Roland has not inspected it. Lena paused. How did you injure your head? I fell while crossing the ravine. And Sophie? She slipped before I reached her. I caught her coat, but she hit the embankment. Did she say why she went there? Isaiah's expression changed. She said someone told her there was a puppy near the greenhouse. Who? She was frightened and confused. She said Uncle Nick, then said the man was not Uncle Nick. Why didn't you tell the family that? I tried. They handcuffed me. Sophie remained unconscious for most of the next day. Doctors diagnosed mild hypothermia, a concussion, and dehydration. There were no injuries suggesting Isaiah had assaulted her. The marks on her wrists came from climbing through a damaged fence. Mud on her clothing matched soil from the pumping station. That evidence should have helped him. Instead, the Belgrave family focused on the 40 missing minutes. Grant hired private attorney Preston Weichler, who appeared on television and described Isaiah as a security employee with unexplained access to the child and knowledge of isolated estate locations. Vivian gave police a statement saying Sophie had once told her Isaiah frightened her. The original comment, according to the nanny, had been that Isaiah's serious security voice frightened Sophie when he warned her away from a moving delivery truck. The distinction disappeared in the retelling. Nicholas said Isaiah resented the Belgraves because his request for promotion had been rejected. Isaiah had never requested a promotion. He had reported security failures. 3 weeks before the disappearance, he sent Roland a written warning about missing camera footage near the East grounds, copied access cards, and delivery codes being reused after expiration. Roland never forwarded the report to the family. When Detective Lena requested it, he claimed he had not received it. Isaiah's attorney, Cora Bellamy, found the original email in his sent folder. Cora was 47, direct and unimpressed by family reputations. She had represented security workers blamed for thefts committed by the people they guarded. They needed a story before the child woke up, she told Isaiah. You were available. He sat across from her in the county detention center. I saved her. That makes the accusation easier to disprove. It does not prevent them from making it. Why am I still here? Because the prosecutor says you had opportunity, knowledge of the grounds, and possession of her ribbon. The person who led her outside also knew the grounds. Yes. Then look at Nicholas. They are. Not the way they looked at me. Cora closed the file. The Belgraves have spent generations teaching institutions that their discomfort is an emergency. You arrived carrying their injured child, and instead of asking how you found her, they asked why she was in your arms. Sophie woke 36 hours after the rescue. Vivian and Grant were beside her hospital bed. Nicholas waited in the corridor with flowers and a stuffed white dog. The first person Sophie asked for was Isaiah. Vivian's face tightened. Why do you want him? He came in the water. Grant leaned closer. Did Isaiah take you to the little building? Sophie frowned. No. Did he tell you to leave the house? No. Who did? She looked toward the doorway. Nicholas stood outside the glass. Sophie's eyes widened. Uncle Nick said there was a puppy. Nicholas entered immediately. "You were dreaming, sweetheart." Sophie shook her head. "You showed me the picture." "What picture?" "The white puppy." Nicholas laughed nervously. "I showed her several photos during dinner. She must be confused." Grant looked at his daughter. "Did Uncle Nick go outside with you?" Sophie hesitated. "No, the other man came." "What other man?" "He had Uncle Nick's phone." Nicholas stopped smiling. Vivian noticed. "What does that mean?" "I don't know," he said. "She has a concussion." Sophie began crying. The doctors ended the questioning. Nicholas left the hospital less than an hour later. He called Roland Keswick from the parking garage. "We have a problem." Roland's reply was quiet. "You said she never saw his face." "She saw my phone." "You should not have used it." "I didn't. Mason did." "Keep your voice down." Neither man knew that the hospital parking garage recorded audio near the security call boxes. Their conversation was not captured clearly enough to understand every word, but their faces were, and the time of the call would matter later. The investigation might still have ended with Isaiah blamed if not for a 12-year-old estate camera everyone believed was broken. Belgrave Manor's security system included 87 modern cameras connected to a central server. The oldest part of the property, the greenhouse, service road, and pumping station, had supposedly been disconnected during renovations. But one analog camera remained inside a stone birdhouse near the greenhouse path. It had been installed years earlier by Conrad Belgrave, Grant's father, after rare orchids were stolen from the greenhouse. The camera did not connect to the main security network. It recorded onto a small independent storage unit inside the estate's gardening office. Conrad had forgotten about it. The head gardener had not. Her name was May Linford, 63, and she had worked at Belgrave Manor longer than Roland. She returned from vacation 2 days after Sophie disappeared and found police tape across her greenhouse. When she asked whether anyone had checked the birdhouse camera, Roland told her it had been inactive for years. May knew that was false. She changed its backup battery every spring. That evening, she entered the gardening office and found the recorder missing. She called Grant. Roland answered his phone. "The unit was removed as part of the investigation," he said. "By whom?" "Police technicians." May contacted Detective Lena directly. The police had never received the recorder. Lena obtained a search warrant for the estate security office. Roland claimed he did not know where it was. The search found nothing. But camera footage from the mansion's interior showed Roland carrying a small gray box into his office at 9:14 on the night Sophie disappeared. He left the office 20 minutes later without it. Investigators searched the room again. Behind a removable wall panel, they discovered the analog recorder wrapped inside a black security jacket. The storage card was missing. Roland was suspended and questioned. He said he had removed the device to preserve it but lost the card during the confusion. Lena did not believe him. Neither did Cora. A digital forensics specialist examined the recorder and discovered that the system automatically created a lower quality backup on an internal memory chip before writing footage to the removable card. The chip still contained 26 minutes of video. The image was grainy and colorless. It was enough. At 7:18 p.m., Sophie appeared on the greenhouse path wearing a light-colored dress and pink hair ribbons. She carried a small tablet displaying an image. A man wearing a dark maintenance jacket approached from the service road. His face was partly hidden by a cap. He showed Sophie something on a phone. The child followed him toward the pumping station. 2 minutes later, Nicholas appeared near the terrace, looked down the path, and returned toward the mansion without calling after Sophie. At 7:33, Isaiah ran into view. He stopped at the fence, removed the pink ribbon, examined the ground, and followed the footprints. At 7:38, the maintenance man returned alone. He met Nicholas near the greenhouse. They argued. Nicholas handed him an envelope. Then Roland's security vehicle arrived. Roland exited, spoke to both men, and took the maintenance jacket from the stranger. The three separated before the official missing child alert was sent. The final image showed Isaiah returning more than 30 minutes later with Sophie in his arms. He was limping. He fell once near the fence, shielded the girl with his body, then stood and continued toward the mansion. The camera did not merely clear him, it showed he had risked his life to save her. Detective Lena watched the footage 3 times, then she called the prosecutor. Isaiah was released that afternoon. No Belgrave family member waited outside the detention center. Cora drove him home. Reporters surrounded the car, asking whether he planned to sue. Isaiah looked through the window at their cameras. 2 days ago, they asked whether I kidnapped her, he said. Today they want to know how much money I'll demand. They still haven't asked what happened to the child. The footage led police to the maintenance man. His name was Mason Tripp. He had worked briefly for an electrical contractor servicing the Belgrave estate. Nicholas had met him at a private gambling club. Nicholas owed more than $400,000 to men who were no longer willing to wait. He devised a plan to stage Sophie's temporary disappearance. The child would be hidden for several hours while an anonymous ransom demand was sent to Grant. Nicholas intended to help negotiate the payment and divert part of it to his creditors. He told Mason that Sophie would be frightened but unharmed. Mason used a photograph of a puppy on Nicholas's phone to lure her outside. He wore the maintenance jacket so cameras would identify him as estate staff, but the plan failed almost immediately. Sophie became frightened inside the pumping station and tried to leave. The damaged door closed behind her. Mason heard water entering the lower level and panicked. Instead of rescuing her, he returned to Nicholas. Nicholas refused to call for help because the ransom message had not yet been sent and the conspiracy would be exposed. Roland became involved because Nicholas had paid him for months to provide delivery codes, camera blind spots, and information about the family's movements. Roland believed they were being used to smuggle expensive wine and stolen art through the estate. When he discovered the child was involved, he did not contact police. He helped conceal the plan to protect himself. Roland ordered guards to remain at their posts, hoping Mason could retrieve Sophie before anyone reached the pumping station. When Isaiah disobeyed and found her first, Roland saw an opportunity. Isaiah had already reported security failures, he was isolated from the family, and he had entered the house carrying the evidence of the crime. Roland deleted Isaiah's gate log, ignored his radio calls, removed the birdhouse recorder, and encouraged Grant to treat him as a suspect. Nicholas planted the idea that Isaiah had been watching Sophie. Vivian repeated it. Grant gave the order to restrain him. The conspiracy worked because each person contributed something different. Nicholas created the danger. Mason abandoned the child. Roland concealed the evidence, and the family's prejudice gave them a believable scapegoat. Mason confessed first. Roland continued denying responsibility until investigators recovered messages from an encrypted phone found inside his office safe. Nicholas attempted to leave the country on a private plane owned by a Belgrave subsidiary. He was arrested before takeoff. The charges included conspiracy to kidnap, child endangerment, attempted extortion, obstruction, and evidence tampering. Roland faced additional charges for destroying records and interfering with an emergency response. Mason cooperated and received a reduced sentence, though the court emphasized that panic did not excuse leaving a child inside a flooding building. The Belgrave family released a new statement. It thanked law enforcement and expressed relief that Sophie was safe. Isaiah's name appeared in the final paragraph. The statement acknowledged that Mr. Mercer appears to have acted courageously during the recovery of the child. Appears. Cora read the word aloud in her office. They still cannot say it directly. Isaiah looked at the printed statement. They said I appeared guilty quickly enough. The full camera footage became public during Nicholas's preliminary hearing. Millions watched Isaiah running along the path. They watched him follow the ribbon. They watched him return, carrying Sophie through the storm. Public opinion changed overnight. News programs that had once shown his employee photographed beside the word suspect now called him a hero. Interview requests arrived from national networks. Isaiah declined most of them. He accepted one. The interviewer asked what he felt when the Belgraves accused him after he brought Sophie home. I understood that saving someone's child does not guarantee they will see you as the person who saved her, he said. Do you believe the accusation was racial? Isaiah paused. They had a missing white child, a wealthy family under pressure, and a black security guard standing in the hall with mud on his clothes. Before they examined one camera, they decided which image made sense to them. Do you forgive them? They have not yet admitted what they need forgiveness for. Grant requested a private meeting. Isaiah refused at first. Cora advised him to listen only if the meeting was recorded. Grant came to her office without attorneys. He looked exhausted. The scandal had damaged Belgrave Meridian Holdings, but his appearance had less to do with business than with the realization that his brother-in-law had endangered his daughter. I owe you an apology, he said. Isaiah remained silent. Grant continued. When you entered the house, I saw Sophie unconscious. You thought I had taken her. Yes. Why? You were alone with her. I was carrying her. You had a ribbon. I followed it. I know that now. Isaiah leaned forward. The camera did not change what I did. It changed what you were forced to believe. Grant looked down. I failed you. You failed your daughter first. Grant's head lifted. Isaiah's voice remained controlled. Your security chief told everyone to stay at their posts while she was outside in a storm. I disobeyed because searching for her mattered more than protecting your gates. When I brought her back, you punished the person who ignored a bad order instead of questioning the man who gave it. Grant did not defend himself. You're right. That is easier to say after the arrests. What do you want from me? The truth in the same places where you allowed the lie. Grant frowned. Isaiah explained. The family accusation had been public. His suspension was public. The news statements were public. A private apology would protect Grant from discomfort without repairing Isaiah's name. Grant agreed to hold a press conference. Vivian opposed it. She feared renewed attention would traumatize Sophie. Isaiah's attorney answered that Sophie's privacy could be protected without concealing what the adults had done. At the press conference, Grant stood beside Vivian and Conrad Belgrave. Isaiah did not stand with them. Grant spoke first. Isaiah Mercer did not take our daughter. He found her, entered a dangerous flooded structure, and carried her back through a storm. He saved Sophie's life. Then he said the sentence the family's advisors had urged him to avoid. We accused him without evidence because fear and prejudice made the accusation feel believable. Vivian cried as she apologized for repeating that Isaiah frightened Sophie. Conrad announced an independent review of the estate's security practices. Reporters asked whether Isaiah would return to work. Grant looked toward him in the audience. The position is his if he wants it. Isaiah stood. I do not. The response surprised the family. Conrad asked to meet with him afterward. Unlike Grant, the older billionaire did not begin with an apology. He began with a question. What would make you return? Nothing. Everyone has conditions. I have conditions for your estate. That does not mean I need to work there. Conrad studied him. Then tell me the conditions. Isaiah listed them. Independent oversight of security systems. No single chief with the power to delete logs. Automatic preservation of emergency communications. A written rule allowing guards to abandon posts when a person's life was at risk. External review before any employee was publicly accused. And no private family influence over evidence. Conrad listened. I can implement those. You should. I want you to direct the reform. No. Why? Because you are offering authority as compensation after your family used authority against me. Conrad accepted the answer more calmly than Isaiah expected. What will you do? Isaiah had already decided. With Cora's help and part of the settlement obtained from Belgrave Meridian Holdings, he founded Mercer Protection Review, an independent organization that investigated security failures in private estates, schools, hospitals, and corporate campuses. The company specialized in cases where employees were blamed before evidence was examined. May Linford, the gardener who remembered the birdhouse camera, joined its advisory board. Detective Lena helped design evidence preservation protocols. Several former Belgrave guards resigned and applied to work with Isaiah. He hired only 2. "I'm not building a refuge from accountability," he told them. "I'm building a place where accountability begins with facts." Sophie recovered fully. For several months, she was frightened by closed doors and storms. She attended therapy and slowly returned to school. She often asked her parents about Isaiah. Vivian initially avoided answering. Eventually, she told her daughter that Isaiah had saved her and that the family had treated him unfairly afterward. "Why?" Sophie asked. Vivian struggled. "Because we were scared." Isaiah was scared too. "Yes. But he still came." The simplicity of the child's answer left Vivian silent. 1 year after the incident, Sophie sent Isaiah a drawing. It showed a small girl beside a river and a tall man holding a flashlight. Above them, she had drawn an enormous camera in the sky. At the bottom, in uneven letters, she wrote, "The camera saw you were good." Isaiah placed the drawing on his desk but added a note beneath it. "I was good before the camera saw me." Nicholas Vale was convicted after a 6-week trial. His attorneys argued that he never intended Sophie to be harmed and planned only a temporary disappearance. Prosecutors showed messages where he refused to call for help after learning water was entering the pumping station. The jury found him guilty. Roland Keswick was also convicted. During sentencing, the judge described his conduct as particularly serious because he used his responsibility for safety to suppress the rescue record and redirect suspicion. Mason received a shorter sentence but was ordered to testify in both trials. Belgrave Manor replaced its security leadership. The East Pumping Station was demolished. Conrad wanted to place a plaque near the river honoring Isaiah. Isaiah refused. "Do not turn the place where your family nearly lost a child into a monument that makes you feel better." Instead, he asked the Belgrave Foundation to fund emergency rescue training for low-income schools and community centers. The program carried Sophie's name, not his. Years later, the original birdhouse camera was displayed inside the State Justice Museum as part of an exhibit about technology and wrongful accusation. Visitors saw the blurred footage of Isaiah crossing the flooded grounds with Sophie protected inside his jacket. Beside the screen were the original headlines calling him a suspect. The exhibit asked one question: what did people believe before they watched the evidence? Isaiah attended the opening but avoided the cameras. He stood near the back while Sophie, now 12, watched the old recording with her parents. She recognized him and ran across the room. This time, no one tried to stop her. She hugged him. Grant and Vivian approached more slowly. The years had not erased what happened, but they had removed the family's ability to pretend it had been a simple misunderstanding. Grant extended his hand. Isaiah looked at it for a moment, then accepted. It was not forgiveness. It was acknowledgement. Sophie pointed toward the screen. "You fell there." "I did." "Did it hurt?" "Yes." "Why didn't you put me down?" "Because the ground was worse for you than it was for me." She considered that answer. Then she asked, "Were you angry when my family blamed you?" "Yes." "Are you still?" "Sometimes." Vivian lowered her eyes. Sophie looked at Isaiah with the seriousness children use when they are trying to understand adults. "My therapist says being angry doesn't make you bad." She sounds wise. She says telling the truth is how scary things become smaller. Isaiah looked toward the video. The footage showed him disappearing briefly behind the trees before emerging with the child in his arms. "Yes," he said. "Sometimes it does." The Belgrave family had blamed the black security guard because he was the easiest person to imagine as guilty. He worked at their gate but did not belong inside their world. He knew the estate but did not share their name. He stood before them injured, exhausted, and carrying the missing child, and they saw suspicion before sacrifice. But the forgotten camera preserved what fear and prejudice attempted to rewrite. It showed the stranger using Nicholas's phone to lure Sophie away. It showed the family's own relative paying the man who abandoned her. It showed the security chief concealing the conspiracy. And finally, it showed Isaiah Mercer running through the storm, falling in the mud, rising again, and protecting the little girl with his own body until he brought her home. The camera proved he saved her. The accusation revealed why proof had been necessary.